Hi everybody, my name is Eitan and welcome to another After Effects tutorial. Now today I'm going to show you this cool tutorial that I got actually as a request from someone, so thank you for the request. And it was based on a video that was requested, and I just did a rough version of it, so it's kind of my own take on it, but I think this ended up looking pretty cool. Here's what it looks like. Just wait a second for it to load. So it's looping right now, but basically you see as the music, as it gets dragged up, the music gets louder, so I'm just going to show you how to do that. Okay, so let's start by making a new composition. 1920 by 1080 is good, and I'm going to drag in the green screen footage. Now I just shot this really quickly, and when I was shooting I didn't realize my ISO was up a little too high, so and my shutter speed also was a little not perfect, as you can see from all the motion blur there. So recommendations when you're shooting your green screen footage: keep the ISO as low as possible, light everything evenly, and keep it to a high shutter, like a fast shutter speed, because that'll avoid some of this motion blur and not make it look like this did. So this was a little hard to key, and I didn't do it perfectly because I was just trying to do this relatively fast so I could get out a tutorial for you guys. But here we go. So bring on key light, and now just take a screen color sample, and I'm just going to toggle the transparency grid there. So just get a nice basic key, and I'm going to go to screen matte, turn the clip back a little, shrink it a little, soften it, and then I guess if we want to do edge color correction, enable edge color correction. I don't know that I like that. So this is alright. This was just a pretty quick little key. It's not perfect, but neither was the footage. So here's just a quick little key. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do, let's just make a black background. And then I'm going to make a white solid and throw a grid on here. So I'm just going to look up grid. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to turn off all three of these layers. We're just going to take a break from that for a minute. Now the next thing we're going to create is our actual thing that we're moving up, our slider type thing. So let's make an ellipse. Let's make an ellipse here, and about that size is probably good. I set a red stroke. Doesn't really matter what color yours is, but make sure there's a decent stroke on there. And then the next thing we can do is find edges. And so you'll see this gets a little funky, so we can invert it to make it even cooler looking. If you want to blend it with the original just a little bit, that'll sort of fill it in. And then we can, let's tint it to make it black and white. Then let's throw on VC Color Vibrance, free download from Video Copilot. So that's pretty good, and let's get a little glow on there. Wonderful. Okay, so now we have our slider element, and so the next slider element we're gonna make is just the line. So for this, just make a line that goes from the inside of that down pretty far, so this way we can drag it up. Okay, and that looks good. So now what we're gonna do for this is bring it under the other shape layer. We can name them to be clear. This one is the circle, and this one is the line. Perfect. Okay, and so for the line, if we want to throw a ramp on there, so this will look kind of cool. So now, we'll play with the ramp in a minute, but what we can do first is parent the line to the circle. So now when we move the circle, this ramp will move, and it's pretty cool because it's sampling the ramp from what would be a background layer, so this is acting almost like an alpha matte, so you can sort of see through, so it changes over time. So I found that really cool. So I can, for example, we can keep that maybe a little lower, and let's make this like a really dark blue, almost a black. And then we can make this one a really bright light blue. So it's like a sliver, sort of. That looks pretty cool. We can even make it, a little darker, and just make it black. And there we go. Okay, so now we have a basic slider. You can play around with this if you want to make it a little thicker. Just make a thicker stroke. And we'll throw a glow on that too. Glows just make everything better. And radius, intensity. Okay, perfect. And now, just to top things off, we'll throw on a null object that we can parent our circle to. Now this really isn't necessary. The only reason I did this was because I was gonna add a particle system before, and I wanted it to be able to track the null as well. So that step was kind of an extra, but in case you want to attach a lens flare to it or something, it's just nice to have the null there. And that way you're animating the null instead. And if we want to move this anchor point, actually, never mind. We don't need to move the anchor point. That's fine. Since we probably won't be using it for anything except animating it up, that's perfectly fine how it is. Okay, so now let's turn back on our footage. Everything will make sense in a moment. Okay, now I feel like we need a background here, so we can just make another ramp. And let's put that there, and we'll adjust this in a minute, but let's make that 3D, and let's make the grid lines 3D. Let's name those. And then the circle and line, and why not the null too while we're at it. So now what we can do is add a camera. Okay, and so now that we have our finger here, I'm just gonna hit C and move the camera around to a point where it looks like the dimensions are the same. Like it's shooting from the same angle. We can spin it around, just try to get it somewhat even with the finger. Just eyeballing it, that looks pretty good. And so now we can just stretch out our ramp and let's darken the colors a little. What did I do on the other one? It all changes afterwards because of the lens flares, so. Okay, and then these grid lines, we can also extend that. And let's make them thin. Maybe let's make it 2. There we go. That looks pretty nice, and we've been throwing glows on everything else, so we might as well throw a glow on that too. Really gets a nice science fiction-y sort of a look. There we go. Okay, so now let's add an adjustment layer and throw a camera blur on there. Camera lens blur. And so right now let's set it to just a nice pretty blurry level. Now, what we're gonna do is make a mask around the area that we don't want blurred. So, say right here, and we can always move this around later. And then we're just gonna feather this a ton and invert it. So, keep feathering. That looks alright. So now we have a couple layers in the wrong order here. The grid should be just above the bottom ramp, and we'll title that one bottom ramp. So here now the grid is officially at the bottom, and then the footage, our initial footage, should be on top of the slider. Okay, let's turn our initial footage off for now. Okay, so we have this slider now, so let's get it into place using the null. So we can throw it around there, and then let's just hold shift on all of those, duplicate it, and then this next null we can just throw sort of over to the side. And I think some of these colors we picked might be a little too dark, so let's lighten them up a little bit on the lines. Let's make that like a nice soft blue at the bottom, and same with the other one. Nice soft blue. Okay, so this looks pretty good. They're not entirely even colors, but if you just did this beforehand, that would be fine. Okay, so now let's turn our footage back on. So now find where the finger points first, and we can move this around too. So you have your footage. Let's just, we can shrink it. Just keep it in the corner so the dimensions work and so it doesn't look awkwardly out of focus. Okay, and where does it start? Let's just bring this down to quarter resolution just so we see where the finger comes in. That looks like the starting point, so we can move the other null over. Let's just move that forward. There we go. And let's just line that other one up as well. We can move it over just a little bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So now we're ready to keyframe the mask, keyframe the positions of the null. So let's hit P here, position, and let's move forward a couple frames. Nothing's really happening. Still going about the same. We're starting to move up. Now only drag this Y slider here. 3 more frames. 1, 2, 3. And it looks like it stops around there. Okay. And we'll stop it around there, so let's just see what we've got so far. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So, now what we're gonna do is add a bunch of optical flares layers. So let's just make them black. I'm just gonna save the project right now. Optical flares. So plugin. Okay. So for now, I'm just gonna grab a preset. I really like the conspiracy presets they have. So that's pretty good. Something nice and anamorphic that the focus is not gonna be on the point. It's gonna be on all these side anamorphic elements. So that's probably good. And then let's set the mode to screen. Remove the black. And that's a good first one. And duplicate that and move it over to here. Move it around a little bit. Duplicate that. Move the center point over there. Actually, let's move it down and then add one more. Let's move both of those down. More lens flares, the better, right? And you can change the types too, the brightnesses. Okay, now I think we have to give our background a little flavor here, so let's go to bottom ramp, and let's play with these colors. I don't know, what would look good there? Dark blue, and maybe a little... I don't know. I guess that looks alright. That looks sort of like a Tron type thing. And let's set this to full resolution just so we can see what it looks like. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. So we have our finger pointing up there and grab. Okay, so now let's pre-compose everything, because why not? So right click, pre-compose. Okay, and now it's time for yet another adjustment layer. So let's throw on yet another glow. Probably used like 20 glows already. There it is. Okay, throw that on, and this time even higher radius. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Did I do anything else in this one? Color scheme was a little different, but looks pretty close. Okay, so now that we're all set with that, we have to add some music. So I'm just gonna add this in right here, and we can open up the waveform. We'll put that there. Okay, so what we have to do is keyframe the starting amount of volume, so it should be in the negatives, and then move that keyframe right to where the slider is first touched, and then find the last frame. So that would probably be last frame of movement. That would probably be right there-ish. That's probably good. And then turn the volume up to plus something. So now I'm just gonna play, I'm gonna press the period button on the keypad. That'll just play through the audio, just so we hear it. So we can hear that it gets louder at that one point. And so by doing a RAM preview, you'd be able to see that as well, that as that gets higher, the volume gets louder. So So let's add on another adjustment layer, and I'm just gonna do the video copilot aspect ratio. A lot of video copilot in this tutorial too. Okay, so we have a nice aspect ratio, and actually we can pre-compose this and move it up a little. Seems a little low to me. It's a nice little trick, because the when you're adding the bars, the widescreen bars, basically what you're doing is you're cropping out part of the image vertically. So you're free to move the image vertically up, so that just makes it look like it has a little more space. So move it up. That's probably good. So now, if we watch through it, let me set this to like quarter resolution. The glow is a bit much there. We can turn that down, but aside from that, we're pretty much done. So, thank you for watching this After Effects tutorial. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And I'm always looking for more tutorial topics, so leave those below as well. So, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.